Here inside TCO Studios, I'm Tatum Everett with the latest edition of Pick 6 presented by KFAN. It's your show. You ask the questions and we get the answers from media experts, coaches, or players. We have a stacked lineup of experts today, and we have some good topics. We go to the draft, the Pro Bowl, and of course, the latest on the hiring of defensive coordinator Brian Flores. So let's kick things off with ESPN's Courtney Cronin answering a question from Zach. He wants to know, what position are the Vikings going to address in the 2023 draft?
We know the Vikings struggled a lot defensively in 2022, 27th in defensive DVOA, 31st in passing yards allowed. And with new defensive coordinator Brian Flores coming in, I imagine the secondary is going to be a primary focus this offseason. Patrick Peterson, Chandon Sullivan are set to be unrestricted free agents, so the Vikings could very well handle the cornerback spot in free agency. But I tend to think they're going to double dip here and use the 23rd pick on a cornerback as well.
Cornerback is a very popular choice for many draft experts on their current boards, and that's something that should make Coach Flores pretty happy. Speaking of Flores, we have several questions surrounding the defensive coordinator. And the first one is from JB. He wants to know which players will most benefit from this hire. NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe answers this one after covering Flores while he was the Dolphins head coach.
I'll give you one on each level. I think we'll start with the back end first. Like I mentioned, the defensive backs are Brian Flores' baby. And so the first round safety last year, Lewis Seen. No, the Vikings fans didn't see a lot of them, but Brian Flores loves to have those versatile safeties, a guy who can get in the box and tackle, but also cover. Can't wait to see what he does to bring him to the next level. I think he'll have a big jump under Brian Flores. And in the middle level, obviously, Eric Kendricks is the guy, the signal caller in the middle. We'll see what happens with him and his contract going forward. But if he's there, then he'll be a key cog in the Brian Flores defense. If not, maybe the rookie, Brian Asamoah, last year, third-round pick. He could make a big jump in that 3-4 defense. Brian Flores loves his guys to be able to be a signal caller in the middle, but also can be 3-down players, whether it be a sideline-to-sideline guy or a guy who can rush off the edge on the blitz as well. And then on the front, we all know what Zadarius Smith can do. He probably can ball with whatever scheme, but I'm looking at Dalvin Thomas, and Brian Flores in Miami drafted a guy named Raekwon Davis as one of his first picks, and he loved him because of his size and his ability to control the middle of the defensive line. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what Dalvin Tomlinson can do with Brian Flores' coaching as well.
Thanks, Cameron. You can check out his in-depth analysis on Flores currently at Vikings.com or on the Vikings app. We're sticking on the topic of Coach Flores with question number 3. This is from John Burnett. What is the first step in turning around this defense? Former Vikings linebacker Ben Lieber takes this one.
All right, John, what is the first step to turning around this defense? Well, I think the first step is not only just finding out who your assistant coaches are, but from the personnel side, you want to find some dogs up front that can get after the passer. I know everyone wants to talk about secondary and all this other stuff, but you can become a really good secondary player if the quarterback is getting hit in the face every single time. So find some guys up front that can get to the quarterback, and we are well on our way to a good defense.
Thanks, Ben. He joins Ron Johnson and I for another reaction to the Flores hire. You can also find that on Vikings.com or the Vikings app. And this will be no surprise, but question number 4, also about the defense. We're going to get Pete Bursich to answer this one, the Vikings radio analyst. It's a question from Alon. He asks, any word on what, if any, specifics the Vikings are looking to do in order to be more aggressive on defense next year? Let's hear from Pete.
Thank you for your pick 6 question. You know, when it comes to defense, I think everybody likes the term aggressive, and I agree with that. But I think the main thing is consistency. And consistency on defense is something that's a must. And you need to get the most that you have and can get out of the players that you have. So there's a lot of coordination, ironically, in all those things. So defensively, we just need to be more consistent. Start there, and then you can dial up the pressure. You can dial up everything else that you want, but you got to be good at your base defense.
Pete is this week's guest on the Minnesota Vikings podcast, which you can listen to on any listening platform as well as Vikings.com. The next question is about the Super Bowl. Of course, it is Super Bowl week, and Sean wants to ask Vikings Entertainment Network's Gabe Henderson, a long-suffering Vikings fan here, how do we stay positive that we will ever win a Super Bowl? As a person that's new to Vikings history, what was your perspective on the Vikings making it to the Super Bowl before coming here? I'm 39 and haven't seen a Super Bowl and not sure I will. Well, hopefully Gabe can lift your spirits, Sean.
Sean, appreciate the question. As a lot of people might know or may not know, before I got to the Vikings in 2020, I was working for the Washington Commanders in 2018 and 2019, the same years as Kevin O'Connell. And outside looking in, looking at this Minnesota Vikings team, my thought process was this team has a really good defense. They can stop the run. They have really strong corners. But the offensive side of the ball, they just have one or two players that's missing. Maybe it was a quarterback getting injured, or maybe it was Case Keenum just not being the guy that Minnesota Vikings fans wanted as far as in a starting quarterback, even though he had the Minneapolis Miracle. And now being on the football side for this Minnesota Vikings team, I think the optimism can continue to trend upward simply because of the hire that we just made with Brian Flores. If you look at his history, he's won 4 Super Bowls in New England. He was a head coach in Miami. He's a defensive-minded guy, worked with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh this past year. I think you marry that with Kevin O'Connell, who's a player's coach, cool, calm, collective, and you mix that authoritarian personality, no-nonsense type of guy. I think that's what our defense and our entire team needs in order to be able to compete for Super Bowls in 2023 and beyond.
Well, thanks, Gabe. I love this next question as we round out this episode of Pick 6. It's from Disco Stew, great Twitter handle. He wants to know, how did everyone on the Vikings Entertainment Network feel about the new Pro Bowl format? And what was their favorite event? Well, Vikings Entertainment Network writer and editor Lindsey Young was there and has this to say.
Hey Brent, thanks for the question about Pro Bowl. I love the opportunity to get to go down there with some of my VEN coworkers and cover the new format. But as far as the flag football game, I actually really liked that new format, and I think it's because the players enjoyed it so much. Fans also really enjoyed just getting to see these players without their helmets on, getting to see how much fun they were having and just interacting with each other. I was a big fan, and I would definitely be in for keeping the flag football format.
I personally like the new Pro Bowl format, especially watching Kirk Cousins lead the NFC team to a victory. That's the last question of Pick 6, so we'll wrap things up. If you want your question on the next show, tweet at me at Tatum Everett on Twitter, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.